What's up, beautiful? I'm back. I would say welcome back to my channel, but at this point, I need to welcome myself back. So yes, welcome back to me and welcome back to you. So today I'm back with a politics video that I would say I'm excited about, but due to the nature of it, I won't. I had a whole different video that I was excited to talk about with Trump and the South African president and Elon Musk and the Joe Biden book, but like, almost out of nowhere, Trump done struck the Middle East. I probably will still do that video, but right now we need to talk about what's going on. So if you're wondering what the hell is going on, then keep watching. So what happened? Basically, the US struck 3 Iranian nuclear sites in Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan, sites where Iran reportedly had underground nuclear facilities deep inside this mountainous region, sites that no one has been able to fully inspect, especially like deep inside of. And from all evidence, it seems Iran is building either a nuclear weapon or nuclear weapons, all while in peace talks and negotiations with the West. So what's important to know? It's important to know that this is a conflict between Israel and Iran. Israel and Iran have long held tensions that date back to biblical times. And it's a complicated history, with Iran not recognizing Israel's right to exist, similar to how Israel doesn't recognize Palestine's right to exist. And Iran is very anti-West, calling Israel small Satan and US the great Satan. And in speeches, they're constantly calling for Israel's annihilation. And Iran also funds a lot, if not the majority, of terrorist groups that are always bombing something or blowing up something. You know, Iran is known for its history of funding these groups, these kind of proxy wars where one nation funds another to go to war with its enemy, similar to how the US funds Ukraine to go to war with Russia. It's Russia and Ukraine actually fighting the war, but the bigger struggle is between the US and Russia. Now, since I can remember, the US has always been trying to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons and nuclear capabilities. And Iran always says that they aren't building nuclear weapons, but they built this underground site that none of the inspectors have access to, and intelligence believes they're housing a nuclear program there. And you know, they continue enriching their uranium supply to the point they're now reportedly at 60%. And once you get to a 90% supply, you pretty much have the capability to build a nuclear weapon or nuclear weapons, so long as you have like the other technology to do it, which it seems like Iran either does or soon will, which is why the US was so motivated to make this strike. Now, from my understanding, according to international law, any nation can get uranium to build generators should they need to sustain electricity in the event of a major disaster. Now, most nations only need a certain low level percentage of uranium to fuel this. But according to the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is based in Austria, Iran is now at 60%. And no one wants anyone, particularly in the Middle East, to have 60%, because then you're just a short way from 90% and capable of building warheads. So, you know, I genuinely believe the US when they say that's why they bombed their 3 sites, because the US and the UN has always been monitoring Iran's nuclear capabilities and always putting pressure on Iran to stop building. If I recall correctly and understand correctly, I think for the longest, they placed like really strict economic sanctions on Iran, and this slowed their progress. But during the Obama administration, Obama and the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, basically like the nuclear deal, the Iran nuclear deal, they lifted some of these sanctions. And I think since then, Iran has been able to proliferate, you know, like ramp up their production. So anyway, Iran is in peace talk negotiations regarding its relationship with Israel. And Trump says Iran has been playing games as far as keeping their promise to stop building. Now, I can recall from a while ago, like maybe back during the Clinton administration or the Bush administration, the UN, or I guess the IAEA, went to inspect, and they gave reports that Iran was building something deep into the ground, and they were hiding parts of the facilities that they were building. Now, like I said, this was years ago. So it's like Iran is still continuing to be deceptive and hide their sites and play games. They said they weren't building a nuclear site, but like, yeah, you are, you know, and now you're enriching your uranium. So where are we now and how did we get here specifically? So there were 5 rounds of negotiations, with I believe the 5th one being scheduled for June 15th. Now on April 12th, Trump wrote a letter to Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei saying they had 60 days to reach a peace deal, which Iran is like, that's not how negotiations work. You don't just dictate terms. You know, you sit down and talk and reach an agreement about what the terms are, which honestly is ironic for a dictator regime to say you don't dictate terms. But anyway, now, despite this, according to the Deputy Foreign Minister of Iran, Majid Taghravanchi, they were working with the Foreign Minister of Oman on a document that addressed everything, like all of the concessions, the expectations, the interests, etc. And they were prepared to present it on June 15th, which is 3 days after Trump's self-imposed deadline. Now on June 12th, the IAEA released a report that Iran was in violation of its, quote, non-proliferation obligations, saying that Iran was, quote, insufficiently cooperating with inspectors, still, and failing to adequately explain the presence of uranium particles at undeclared sites and exceeding agreed upon limits of enriched uranium. So on June 13th, Israel attacked their missile sites in the middle of the night, according to Iran. Now, this may seem like the right move by Israel, but Israel has been on some crimes against humanity type-ish with how they're responding to all of the terrorist attacks carried out by Hezbollah and Hamas, which again are terrorist groups funded by Iran. And you know, we see Israel's crimes against humanity most notably right now with how they're committing war crimes on the Palestinian people in their fight against Hamas. Like, children are starving, they're not letting food into the region, they're cutting off electricity, water, you know what I mean? Like on the Palestinian people, on civilians, not actual Hamas. So in retaliation to the June 13th attack on its missile sites, Iran responded by attacking an Israeli hospital. And I guess during this time, there were talks of whether the US was going to get involved. And the Republican Party, specifically MAGA, was split on how they should proceed. MAGA people like Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon were urging for the US not to get involved because they see it as another Afghan and Iraq disaster. Because the truth of the matter is these people don't stop. Like, they keep fighting and they fight from the shadows and it's never ending. Like, they don't care about dying, because for many of them, they feel like they're fighting for a good cause. You know, they feel like they're fighting the small Satan and the great Satan of the world. So war with them can really be like long and drawn out, you know? And honestly, even if you did defeat one leader or 2 or 10, there will always be another 1, 2, or 10 waiting in the shadows, ready to fill the void. You know, like, it's literally an idea that they're trying to fight, and that's hard. So many MAGA Republicans and Republicans in general don't want that. Mainly because it comes down to the loss of life of American troops for no real victory, because another batch of terrorists will just pop up, you know? But the Warhawks, they don't care. They want to fight it and try to squash it out. So what Trump and the US did was kind of draw a line down the middle, saying we aren't striking Iran per se and not trying to declare war on Iran. We're striking the nuclear facilities to show that we are serious about Iran ceasing its nuclear program. What I find interesting is there are many Iranians who may actually share sentiments with what the US did, because many of the Iranian people don't particularly care for Iran's current regime, similar to how many people in the US don't care for Trump and his administration. So on one hand, you know, I can see why the US did what they did from a historical standpoint and what it means for Iran and this particular regime to gain nuclear power. Like, nobody would be safe. But what I wonder is the US sure that they actually destroyed all the equipment? You know, some people are saying Iran already moved the equipment after Big Mouth Trump said he was going to strike in 2 weeks. And even if they didn't move it, how can we be sure that we actually got all of the equipment? Because no one really knows just how far down these facilities go or how far they stretch out, you know? Because again, no one has actually seen the inside of the sites where the actual program was being carried out. So like, how do you know you didn't just hit the surface of it? And now Iran is ready to retaliate, most concerningly on the American troops in the region. The other question I have is, what really made the U.S. think Iran would choose peace after the U.S. struck their sights? Because the U.S. said, we did this, now choose peace or there will be more destruction. And Iran responded saying, America started it, we will finish it. And now New York, DC, and LA are all on high alert in case Iran wakes up sleeper cells here in the States. They don't know if they're going to strike troops in the region or here in the States. So far, Iran has only responded by striking Israel. So yeah, going back to what I was saying, what made us so confident that we struck the kind of damage that would make Iran surrender? Especially if before we even struck, Iran was like, do what you do and just know we'll retaliate. Because the flip side that I wonder if Trump considered is that so many of our enemies will come to Iran's defense. Even if the U.S. did destroy all of Iran's weapons and capabilities, Iran will simply enlist the aid of Russia and North Korea and China and rebuild and strike back, no matter how long it takes. Not everyone is as impatient as America. The Iranian people, particularly that sect that subscribes to that kind of like terrorist ideology, they know how to play the long game. And honestly, even if Iran did surrender and come back to the negotiating table, which seems like a no-go at this point with Iran saying they'll finish it, I still wouldn't trust them to stop plotting and stop building their nuclear program. But you know what is interesting? Iran's deputy foreign minister said Iran wants peace. They want a world full of peace. They don't want to build a nuclear program. They're only doing it because, their enemies have it. That being Israel and the U.S. Now, if that is true, then I think Iran should take this strike on the chin, but I don't see that happening. Even if it seems like they do, which I hope they would, I still wouldn't trust them to stop building, because this has been going on for years, like literally. Now, from my limited knowledge of the whole thing, I would say the only way Iran is going to stop or chill out is if Netanyahu chills out, because he has really been running buck wild, continuously attacking Iran. Even though I understand why he is, because they fund all of these terrorist groups, but he's really been going in. I would say Iran needs to have a regime change that comes from the people of Iran, and then Israel and the US chill out, butt out, and just keep a close eye on Iran. But yeah, I'm definitely going to keep studying up on this. I would encourage you to do the same, and I will report back later when I have a more comprehensive understanding, because it really is a complex situation and there really is no easy answer here. And anyone who says that there is probably doesn't understand the history of the world and the history between Israel and Iran, because Iran's ideological hatred of Israel and America is real and deep. And like I said, it dates back to biblical times. So unless America, becomes a Muslim nation and stops all of its shenanigans around the world, which I doubt it ever will, Iran will continue to harbor hatred for America and what it stands for, behind that decadent veil. So yeah, that's my assessment of what's going on. Drop me a comment and let me know what you think about all this, or if I missed anything or got anything wrong. I would love to hear what you think. Do you think Iran is going to surrender? How do you think they're going to strike back? And if they do come back to the negotiation table, would you trust that they weren't still plotting? Drop that in the comments and let me know. All right, until next time, beautiful, keep an eye and an ear out for what's going on in the news. Make sure you stay prayed up and safe and prepare for any and everything, because who knows what's coming down the pike. All right, until next time, beautiful. Lisa May here saying peace, love, blessings, and safety for you and yours.